Welcome back, everybody. On my computer screen, it says 11:10. So my name is Anna Dubkowski. I am the Resource Sharing and Outreach Coordinator here at the Central New York Library Resources Council, CLRC. Thank you for joining us for this conference, our membership meeting, if you choose to stay this afternoon for that. And for this session, welcoming LGBTQ plus patrons. Before we get started, there is housekeeping. We will be utilizing the chat as well as the Q&A. So feel free to introduce yourselves or say hi in the chat, any comments, but if you do have any questions, we would appreciate if you could put them in the Q&A, kind of separates things a little bit. Live captioning is available for this session. You will find the toggle at the bottom of your screen. Click show subtitles if you would like, or hide subtitles if you would prefer not to have the subtitles. All the attendees are required to follow the CLRC's Code of Conduct that will be added to the chat. To summarize, pretty much it's treat the CLRC staff, the presenters, and the event attendees with respect. Those of you that will not adhere to that code of conduct will be removed from the conference. Okay, so now without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenter for this session, Stephanie Markham. She is the Teen Services Librarian at Jervis Public Library in Rome, New York. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, thanks for having me. All right, I'm going to get my slideshow up, and if it went as well as it did during our tech rehearsal, then you should be seeing slides momentarily. Here, we're going to share and the slideshow. All right, are we seeing my slides? I suppose I should. There's the chat. Okay. Hi, my name is Stephanie Markham, and I am the Teen Services Librarian at Jervis Public Library in Rome, New York. And we are going to talk about welcoming LGBTQ plus patrons. Please, if you have comments while I'm talking, use the chat. I have the chat window up. I am putting my email address in here at the beginning, and I'll do it again at the end so that everybody can have that. And these slides will be shared after the conference eventually. All right. A little bit about me. My name is Stephanie. I use she, her pronouns. I've been working in libraries for a little bit over 10 years. I am currently the Teen Services Librarian in Rome, New York. As I said, I am part of the queer community, and this dress in the picture on screen, accompanied by a 5-year-old's rendition of what I actually look like. You can see the resemblance. And the dress that I am wearing here, I'll give you a little preview in the picture window, is a shibboleth. What is a shibboleth? An excellent question. I'm glad you asked. A shibboleth is a subtle signal that people in a group understand and that people from outside of that group may not see as a signal. So in this case, you can see the space theme, the purple, black, gray, and white, which are in fact the colors of the asexual flag. This dress, for anyone in the know, looks exactly like something an asexual person would wear. If you can direct your attention briefly to my picture window instead of my slides, you can see I've got a bracelet that has that same flag pattern, and I've got another bracelet, which, if you look carefully, is another pride flag. So we're going to talk about 2S LGBTQIAPP+. See also LGBT, GLBT, LGBTIQ, GSM, QTPOC, and my personal favorite, quilt bag. So I know these are way more letters than you usually see in this acronym. So I'm going to break it down for you a little bit. The 2S is for Two-Spirit. That is an Indigenous queer identity. LGBTQ, probably the one that you're most familiar with, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. Queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, pansexual, polyamorous, plus. So if you have questions about any of these acronyms, or if you are just very confused about alphabet soup, please drop a note in the comments. Or if you have a different acronym that is your favorite, I'd love to know that too. So we have a very short amount of time to get through a very big amount of information. So here's a little overview of what we're going to talk about. Who are our LGBTQ+ patrons? How can we be inclusive both passively and actively? What do we do when there are challenges? And then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for questions. So this is just a quote that I like to start off my presentation, because identities are always changing. They are always in flux. And even if you know exactly who you are today, maybe tomorrow you'll feel a little bit different. Gender doesn't exist as a monolith. Sexuality does not ever stay stagnant. So, who are you? Said the caterpillar. This was not an encouraging opening for a conversation. Alice replied rather shyly, I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then. Who are our LGBTQ+ patrons, and why are we talking about them? Our LGBTQ+ patrons might be out to us. They might not be. They might be identifiable on first sight as queer. They might not be. And I'm going to take this opportunity to give a little note about the language that I'm using. I say queer. Queer was not always a kind word. Queer has been used as a slur. The way that I am using queer here is as a loving umbrella term, because I can say, yes, I'm here as a panromantic, asexual woman, cisgendered, or I could just skip the very specific language and say, yes, I am here as a queer person. So, who are our LGBTQ+ patrons? If you've never seen this graphic, this is the gender unicorn, and it is adapted and remade from, you might have seen a gender spectrum, a genderbread man. This one is made by trans students, and I will have a link to this at the end of my presentation. This shows all the different ways that we identify our gender and sexuality. So we have our gender identity, our gender expression. Identity is what you feel inside. Expression is how you show it on the outside. You have your sex assigned at birth. You have who you're physically attracted to and who you're emotionally attracted to. And sometimes those are the same and sometimes they're not. So I encourage all of you to go and find the gender unicorn created by the Trans Student Educational Resources and fill out your gender unicorn. Here's one that's filled out. So you can kind of tell what you feel on the outside, what you feel on the inside, your physical and emotional attractions. There they are. So what gender is this patron? Go ahead and guess. I'll give you a minute to type your guess into the chat. Those of you who already know this patron, your answers don't count. You can refrain from guessing, but go ahead and type into the chat what gender you think this patron is. A cute little one. Yes. Anybody have a guess? Well, this patron has long hair. Looks like this patron is wearing a headband. This patron looks pretty happy. This patron looks inquisitive. This patron is wearing stripes. This patron is wearing a blue sweater. Maybe this patron is a girl. Maybe this patron is a boy. This patron is 5 years old. It doesn't matter what gender this patron is. It doesn't matter at all. How are you going to help this patron? What is this patron interested in? You can see on the little owl, maybe this patron's name starts with Ash. We still don't know if this is a girl or a boy because it doesn't matter. You can't tell just by looking. And that goes for children, that goes for adults, that goes for everyone in between. If you stop assuming what gender your patrons are, then you might have an easier time interacting with them, and you'll absolutely not have any of those, well, hello, little lady, I'm a boy. Hello, sir. Actually, hello, ma'am. You'll avoid all of those interactions. So what are we going to do to include everyone? We're going to change our language. This is really, really difficult to do. We're going to change our language. And if you're a school librarian and you say, good morning, boys and girls, what might you say instead? Anybody have any ideas? Come on, we're going to use the chat. Everyone, yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, students. Good morning, friends. I use all of those. Good morning, friends. Is your mom with you today? What could we say instead of that? Because, you know, maybe the student is raised by their dad. Maybe the student has grandparents. Maybe the student has a non-binary parent. Yeah, who's with you today? Is your caregiver with you today? Is your grown-up here? Where's your adult? We do this all the time, this next one. Can you tell me which computer I'm supposed to use? Ah, yes, it's the one right next to the man in the red jacket. You don't know that the person in the red jacket is a man. You don't know. So we can say it's next to the person in the red jacket. We can say it's over there next to the computer that's already in use. The line for the bathroom starts next to the person who is currently in red. We can say any of these things. And then, of course, I think a lot of us in New York State have gender neutral restrooms now, which is absolutely amazing and I love. But if someone says, hey, where's your restroom? And you say, yes, the ladies' room is right down the hall. What could we say instead of that? We could say, well, the ladies is down the hall and the men's is down the other hall. Restrooms are down the hall. It gets tricky if you have gendered restrooms that are in different places. Give directions to both. You don't know if the patron is asking for themselves or maybe for someone else. Maybe you have someone who is neither a lady nor a gentleman and instead is a non-binary friend. Which restroom would they use? So yeah, restrooms, the bathrooms are over there. You have to go down the hall and on your left and everything will be there. So work on changing your language. It's really, really hard to do. If you practice, it gets a little bit easier. And if you practice a lot, it gets a lot easier. So that's one of the most important things you can do to support all of your patrons, make everybody feel more comfortable. So we're going to start with passive inclusivity, making an impression before you even say hello. So this is the kinds of things that are around your library. This is your decor. This is your way of welcoming people. This is your library's presence, all of that. I have a sign that I absolutely love. And it says, this library is enthusiastically trans and non-binary affirming. Everyone will respect pronouns and preferred names. So I brought my sign here. I got the non-binary colors. They also have it in trans colors. They have different signs for different facilities. You can say this school, you can say, you know, this business, anything like that. But this is the best sign that I have at the library. And there is, of course, a link below where you too could have this library is enthusiastically trans and non-binary affirming. Everyone will respect pronouns and preferred names. So when I have an event, sometimes I bring it up and I display it behind me. So everyone knows, even if they miss my intro, even if they are late, even if they are a little bit scared to be out, they know without me even saying anything that we affirm everyone and they can give us pronouns that don't necessarily match their gender expression. When I'm not having programs, this sign is up in my teen section, which is way out in the middle of a wall in the main library. And let's see, your social media tells a lot about you. So post for Rainbow Book Month, post on Trans Day of Visibility, post for Bisexual Coming Out Day, post for ACE Week, post all the time and include gender and sexuality, all the different kinds of identities in your regular book displays. So if you have a book display for Women's History Month, put up a book that features a transgender woman. If you have May is Mental Health Awareness Month, you can put up mental health books where the kids are gay, you know, put up books about lesbians, put up books about bisexual disaster humans. Teens love these. These are some of my displays. Everybody could use some more queer books in their regular book displays. It doesn't just have to be Pride Month. Not just in June do queer books belong in your displays, and especially if your queer books are intersectional. So if you have a Black History Month display, put in queer books. People who are different races, ethnicities, religions, they are all allowed to be queer and they should all be represented. So put them in, include them. But what do you do when you are helping a parent who says, do you have any girl books? And I am adapting this from a toy quick guide. Is this toy for girls or boys? A quick guide? Spoiler alert, books are gender neutral, just like toys. So do you read this book with your genitals? If yes, this is not a book for children. If no, this book could be for boys or girls. It's tough when the parents demand, no, this is a girl book and I want a boy book. It's really tough. But you can say, okay, what's he interested in? And go from there. We don't gender our book displays. We don't gender our book selections. And I hope we don't gender our collection development. Sure, some books have appeal to cis, hetero, macho, gay men, or straight men, sorry. Some books, they have animal protagonists. Some books have non-binary protagonists. Books are not gendered. Likewise, our restrooms, if you don't already have gender neutral restrooms, please, 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 this is one of the best things that you can do. And our restrooms here at Jervis Public Library have this sign, all gender restroom, with a picture of a toilet. You don't have to put a person who is half pants and half skirt, because we all know the two genders are pants and skirt. Sometimes you'll see, whatever, just wash your hands, with a picture of an alien or a mermaid or some other kind of cryptid mythological being. These are okay for a laugh, but you probably don't want to put this kind of sign up, because then people might get the impression, ah, yes, aliens, the same as trans people. They're not. Right. Mermaids, because those exist exactly like intersex people do. Just picture of a toilet. You know, you can have a picture of a wheelchair if your bathroom is accessible. You can have a picture of any kind of gender symbol. But I've found that the most inclusive thing is literally just a toilet icon. That's the bathroom. No guessing. All right, so those are all of our physical spaces. I know during the COVID shutdown, we had a lot of virtual spaces. I am still running a Discord server for my teens, and I have all of my rules. I have a spot where they can choose their pronouns, so they don't even have to talk to me to change their pronouns. And you should give the option. Give the option to change your pronouns whenever you want. You can put your pronouns in your email signature. A lot of people are doing that, and it really normalizes it. So I am a cisgender woman, and I have my pronouns in there. I present as a woman. My gender expression and my gender identity match. And I list my pronouns in my signature for my email, because not everyone's do. So if I'm reading someone's email signature and I say, ah, yes, pronouns, she, her, and this is from maybe a trans woman who just came out and started transitioning. If I'm going to meet that person, I already know from her email signature. Or sometimes people will use pronouns that you've never heard before. And then you can see them in an email signature. You can look them up, and you don't have to be blindsided, and nobody has to correct you if you're meeting in person. On Zoom, you can rename yourself. You can go into your Zoom settings right now if you want, and you can add your pronouns in parentheses after your name. This is a great way to communicate without saying anything at all while we're all on video. That's become pretty important. And I was looking at the Zoom settings in the profile, and I saw that recently they've added a place where you can put your pronouns separately from in your display name. So you can do that too. All right, that was a lot. Let's look at some rainbows. Does anybody have questions so far? All right, I am seeing the chat. I am not seeing the question box. So I'm sure Anna will tell me if anybody has questions in the question thing. I wasn't sure how to pop that out of my window. Oh, yep, no, there it is. No questions yet. Beautiful. And I found it on my screen, so now I can check. Yay. All right. We got a lot more information. We're going to get through it. So, are these not the most gorgeous slides you've ever seen? I love these rainbows. Let's talk about active inclusivity, which is making an impression after you say hello. So, introducing yourself, just add a little bit more information after your name. So a lot of times when I meet someone new, I say, hi, I'm Stephanie. I use she, her pronouns. And then that lets the person know both, yes, my gender identity does match my gender expression. You don't have to guess at what my pronouns are. And it also lets them know that it is safe to share their pronouns with me. If that's a little bit too basic for you, you can say, hi, I'm Stephanie, she, her. What's your name and your pronouns if you want? Don't push anyone to share their pronouns if they don't want to. Sometimes people aren't sure of what their pronouns are. Sometimes they're changing. Sometimes, sometimes I get teens who stand next to their parent and do not introduce themselves with pronouns and do not say anything, do not cue their gender identity at all. But then once the parent leaves, if I've introduced myself with my pronouns, they say, I'm not out yet, but can you use they, them when we're together, but not in front of my mom? If you share your pronouns, you are cueing to people that you are safe for them to share their pronouns. So here are a couple different ways to introduce yourself. How should I get your attention? Don't demand anyone's pronouns. If they want to share, that's good. You can even reinforce it in your library system. So here in the Mid-York library system, we use workflows and we can add notes. We can add preferred names. We can do all of that. So I have a patron here whose permission I got to use their workflows record. And anytime they check out a book, a little note pops up and it says, they, them pronouns. Otherwise, they get, here you go, ma'am. And they're not a woman. So use the right information. It's really easy. If you also use workflows and you need to know how to add notes, you can probably ask anyone in the Mid-York library system, but you can also email me and I would be happy to walk you through that. All right, we are going to have a text-heavy slide next. This is the only text-heavy slide, so prepare yourselves. We need to center queer experiences. I thought really hard about doing this presentation because I am not out to everyone. When a couple of my coworkers heard that I was going to be talking about LGBTQ patrons, they say, oh yeah, you do a great job with those kids. And I say, yeah, also, I'm queer too. And they're like, what? So you don't have to be out. You don't have to be out professionally. You don't have to be out personally. You don't have to be out to yourself. But if you're going to talk about queer people, you got to listen to queer people. This especially goes for our intersectional identities. And if you are queer and also a person of color, if you are queer and also neurodivergent, if you are gay and autistic, your experiences just compound and one experience informs the other. So be mindful that maybe the lesbian who is Black has a different experience and a different worldview from the lesbian who is white, or the lesbian who is Indigenous, or the lesbian who is Hispanic. Everybody has different experiences, And oftentimes the way that we look and the way that we express ourselves and the way that our minds work, they intersect, and you cannot separate that from the queer experience. So if you yourself don't identify as any flavor of queer, the internet is such a wonderful place. We all know how to do research, right? If you hear something that you're not sure about, Google it. It's so easy. If you hear something you're not sure about and you Googled it and you can't find it anywhere, if you see a pattern of colors or a bunch of stripes and you say, that looks like a pride flag to me, and you can't find it anywhere online, ask someone who knows a lot about queer stuff, but is not queer themselves before you ask a queer person. Or if someone has outed themselves and say, hey, if you ever have any questions about anything, I love talking about this stuff, I love teaching this stuff, please ask me as a queer person. So related, hi, I'm a queer person. Please, please, please ask me if you have questions about things. I love explaining this. That's why I'm here. Read queer books. Read queer authors. Add them to your regular reading list. Queer books are everywhere. They are fiction, they are nonfiction, they are comic books, they are audiobooks, they are everywhere. I will have a very short recommended reading list at the end of these slides. Listen. This is huge. Listen, regardless of what I say today. I use the word queer a lot. Like I said, some people, especially older people who lived in a generation at a time when the word queer was one of the worst slurs that people can throw at you. If they say, hey, please don't use that word around me. Don't do it. Don't do it just because I'm doing it. Don't be like, hey, but I went to that CLRC conference and that queer lady said that I could use this word. Listen to what people want you to say. It's so important. Try to mirror the language that your patrons are using. And of course, please try. It's hard to do and you will make mistakes. You are going to misgender people. You are going to say the wrong thing. You are going to forget. It's going to be embarrassing. You have to get over it. You have to keep trying. Otherwise, what are we even doing? If we're not trying, if we're not serving our communities, why are we librarians? All right, that's the only text-heavy slide, I promise. Let's talk about challenges. The most important thing, please have a policy. There were 729 challenges reported to the American Library Association's Office of Intellectual Freedom in 2021. There have been many challenges again in 2022. I'm sure that you all have heard news about book challenges. I know that it's happened in some of your communities. A lot of the reasons for challenges, you can see the biggest thing here, sexually explicit. Pretty big, LGBTQIA, pedophilia, indoctrinating kids. There are people who do not want queer people to exist. And there are people who will do whatever they can to take books off of our shelves so that they don't have to see, their kids don't have to see, nobody in their community has to see that queer people exist. Spoiler alert, queer people exist regardless. And if you are taking the books off of your shelves and you're bowing to pressure, then you are doing a large community a disservice. So what can you do? You can have a collection development policy. Yay! Have a policy, have it cover ordering, have it cover weeding and age ranges and what to do if there are challenges. So I am lucky enough to work in a library where I know exactly where the book challenge form is. Here it is on the screen. Here it is in person. It is the request for reconsideration of library material. And you will see the third question after the title and the author of the material are, did you read or view the entire work? A lot of times people will go and cherry pick just the section that people told them was obscene. So if you don't already have a collection development policy, get one. If you have the power to write policies in your library and you don't already have a request for reconsideration of library material, do it now. Book challenges are becoming more and more popular among people who want to get diverse viewpoints off of our shelves. And I'm sure we have all heard about the danger of a single story. We got to have all of the stories. So, request for reconsideration of library material. This one is just the one page followed by the freedom to read statement from the ALA. So it's all of that. But really, pretty much the most important question, did you read the whole book? If no, why? There is a link at the end of my presentation to my library's request for reconsideration of library material, lovingly rendered and updated in 2019. So if you want a link to that, it's going to be at the end. If you want to take our policy and use it wholesale, I'm pretty sure that would be okay with our director. That was a lot. Okay. So here's our resources. This, I think, covers everything. From the Gender Unicorn, that the sign, the Rainbow Book Month resources. There's a lot of that from the ALA. The infographic is this toy for girls or boys. There is a whole stock photo collection that Vice has that is a gender spectrum collection. Use queer people in your stock photos. Use androgynous people. Use visibly transgender people. Do it. So there's some banned books info from the ALA, and of course the Jervis Public Library collection development policy and request for reconsideration of library material. So there's that. Here are some recommended reads, and again, I will be sending this, or CLRC will be sending this out probably next week, or I don't know when. I'm sure that Anna or Rebecca will be able to tell you when, but here are some of my favorite queer books. Do we have any questions? And I'm going to leave this last slide up in case you need to get in touch with me. So I'm reading through the comments. There's a community in the Midwest where everyone defunded the library. Yeah. People don't think about what a slippery slope banning books is. It's scary. It's really scary. Let's see, I'm looking at a couple more comments here. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger so that I can see all of them at once. Our forum also asks the person to check off the format. Yeah, sometimes it's different media. Your collection development policy should cover all the media that you have in the library. So if people check out an R-rated movie and their 7-year-old watches it, you know, that's not the library's fault. Who else has questions or comments or whatever?
Those were amazing, amazing comments from Meg and Dave. Thank you for adding those to the chat. Any other questions from the group?
All right. Oh, I see another comment here. It is so important for queer people and allies to run for library boards. Please, if you know anyone who's willing to run for a library board that would do a good job, please encourage them, because there are huge campaigns by people who want to ban books and people who want to erase any queer identity, any mention of queer identities, and they are running for the boards. So be aware of that and do everything you can to counteract it. Let's see. I got a question here. Do we make sure age-appropriate content is siphoned off into teen or children's rooms only? Let's see. So age-appropriate content is so subjective. We here at Jervis Public Library have a children's section, a teen section, and the rest of the library is like the Wild West. It's for everyone. So I try to make sure that if I am buying a teen fiction book and it has really explicit sex scenes in it, I'm going to evaluate that. I might say, yeah, that's adult. That's very adult, and I'm going to move that to adult. Recently, we had books that were in Ingram as YA. Some of the new Sarah J. Maas books, that series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, I think, that series got real spicy real fast. And so we moved the series to adult. You have the power. You can change the call numbers. I'm also in charge of ordering graphic novels. So if I am ordering a graphic novel for, and I think, yeah, this is going to be for kids, and then there's on-page death, and there's a lot of blood, and there's a lot of gore, and it's drawn in a way that is pretty, pretty icky, I'm going to move that to teen. You can order something and you can be wrong. It is okay to be wrong about it. So look at your thing. Look at the things that you're buying. Look at the things that your coworkers are buying. Check out books, read books. A lot of the books that are banned and challenged, I try to read all of them. So if someone says, hey, why do you have this book? And I say, oh, did you read it? Did you get to the part where, yeah, they had a scene where maybe someone was raped? Maybe that was an integral part of their story. We don't want to hide bad things, If we shelter children and teens, how are they going to grow up to be functioning adults? So you have to talk about it. You have to do it gently. Let's see, Travis. Yes, Travis, I know that every time I order a graphic novel that Hamilton doesn't have, you are the first person to check it out, and I appreciate your boost to my circulation stats. All right, any other questions?
Stephanie, I have a
Yes.
question.
Sure.
You were talking about, is this book for a boy or a girl, right? And that book is not gendered. But
Yes.
I'm wondering if you have had any experience or any conversations with school librarians specifically related to that. Because, there's one thing about coming into a public library and asking for a recommendation of a book. But I'm wondering if you've had any conversations about school librarians and the recommendations that they give out to the students.
That's a really good question. Since I am the Teen Services Librarian, I don't really go into elementary schools. And so my wonderful coworker and very supportive ally, the children's librarian, would probably be better equipped to answer that for school librarians. When I go to middle school, they're kind of over that, and the kids know, well, some of them know they don't like to read regardless of what it is. But they're kind of over gendering their books. I will say that what gender is this patron slide is my child, who presents as very androgynous, and I have talked with his school librarian. Oh shoot, I just revealed his gender. I meant to not do that. That's okay. I have talked to his school librarian informally as a parent, and it's so tough when our gender norms are so ingrained in society. It's just little by little we have to do that. So I would always recommend, if school librarians get stuck in that, is this a book for a boy or is this a book for a girl? They say, well, what does the child like? Everything is subjective. Something that is a great book for one boy might be terrible for another boy. My kid loves books about ponies. He cannot get enough ponies, unicorns, sparkles, loves them. Do some of these books have glittery unicorns and pink covers? Absolutely. Have I ever been asked, are you sure you want to give him a girl book? I have, unfortunately. To which I say, books are not gendered. So you just got to keep driving it in and keep saying the same thing. And yes, thank you, Dave. That's where our info literacy comes on. How do we use information? So you just got to do it over and over. The work never, ever ends.
Well, it looks like we're at the top of the hour. So thank you, Stephanie.
All
Very
right, thanks.
thought-provoking information you gave to us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And I think we all appreciate it.
I'm
So we
typing
will,
my email in again. So if anyone has any questions, please, please, please get in touch. Even 6 months from now, if you have a question, I'm always happy to answer.
Thank
you
you.
all for coming.
Thank you. We will be taking an hour-long lunch break. If you come back, we will be using the same Zoom link throughout the entire day. So stay logged in or leave and come back with that link. We'll be leaving slides up. We will be leaving the music on. And then Rebecca will be sending the conference program and the virtual poster session. So after you have a quick bite with your sandwich, take a look at that poster session, and see you back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.